Like Genesis, Exodus is a powerful and dramatic book of beginnings, as it depicts the descendants of Abraham becoming a well-organized nation. Exodus is a book of salvation and deliverance, relating how the Israelites gained their freedom from Egypt under the mighty hand of God. The firstborn of Egypt die as the Passover angel spares the precious sons of Israel, for whom the blood of the Lamb was shed. At Mount Sinai, God reveals himself to Israel and enters into a covenant with them, a covenant summarized in the Ten Commandments. There, in the Sinai desert, God gives Israel the tabernacle, a sanctuary where the people can worship the Lord, who now dwells in their very midst. The Greek translators of the Old Testament gave the name Exodus to the second book of the Pentateuch. It was a superb title, since the word means exit or departure, and since the book describes the departure of Israelites from Egypt after a difficult period of slavery. The word appears in the Greek Bible in Exodus 19:1. The English Exodus is the Latin variation of the Greek word and is found in the Vulgate, the splendid Latin translation of Jerome. The Hebrew title is "These are the names of," taken from the first words of the book. Unlike in the beginning for Genesis, the Hebrew title does not fit the overall content of the book very well, but it does link Exodus with Genesis 46:8, where the names of Jacob's sons are also given. In Exodus chapter 1, verses 2 through 5, the order is slightly different, giving the sons of Leah and Rachel before the 4 sons of the concubines. The 70 who came to Egypt became an innumerable host before finally gaining their release from Egypt. Purpose and scope. The book of Exodus was written to describe the difficulties of the Israelites in Egypt and the faithfulness of the God who rescued them from their bondage. Not only did the Lord deliver them from Egypt, he entered into a formal covenant with the nation at Mount Sinai and taught them how to live and how to worship. Through the giving of the 10 Commandments, God showed the Israelites how to maintain a proper relationship with him and with one another. The instructions about the tabernacle enabled the people to approach the Lord and to be conscious of his presence among them. Among the promises to Abraham was the assurance that his descendants would be fruitful and multiply. And in the early verses of Exodus, we learn that this did indeed happen in Egypt. When the covenant was instituted, however, Abraham was also told that his descendants would be enslaved and mistreated 400 years in a foreign land. That grim prediction was fulfilled in Egypt as the Israelites suffered greatly, at least during the latter part of the 400 years. But God did not forget his covenant with Abraham, and through the mediation of Moses delivered his people from the house of slavery. For the Israelites, the great themes of salvation and redemption were inextricably linked with the exodus from Egypt. God was a God who above all else rescued Israel from their horrible situation and won their freedom with his mighty hand. While accomplishing his purposes, God revealed his character to the Israelites and the Egyptians when he made known to them his name, Yahweh. Appearing to Moses in the burning bush, God disclosed that he was the great I Am and that he would be with his people in their distress. Through the plagues and the miracle of crossing the Red Sea, the Israelites came to know more fully who Yahweh really was. And through these acts of judgment, the Egyptians learned the hard way that Israel's God was the Lord. He was the Lord of history, majestic in holiness, awesome in glory, working wonders. When God spared the firstborn sons of the Israelites, he instituted the feast of the Passover, which became a calendar-changing event. The blood of a lamb had to be placed on the doorframe of each house on the 14th day of the month, and the angel of the Lord passed over each house where the blood was visible. The death of a lamb in place of the death of the eldest son served as a dramatic illustration of substitutionary atonement and is used in the New Testament with reference to Christ when he is called our Passover lamb. Throughout the Old Testament, the Passover was the most important of the religious festivals and served as a reminder of God's mercy and deliverance. The Last Supper observed by Jesus and his disciples was a celebration of the Passover meal. Before completing the relatively short journey to Canaan, the Israelites spent a year at Mount Sinai receiving instructions from the Lord and preparing to fight the Canaanites. This strategic interlude was designed to turn a disorganized band of slaves into a cohesive nation, one that was deeply committed to the God of their fathers. At Mount Sinai, God revealed himself to the people and entered into a covenant with them, called the Sinai or Mosaic Covenant. This agreement is also known as the Old Covenant and has given its name to the Old Testament. Here at Mount Sinai, Israel was given the key principles to godly living summed up in the 10 Commandments, and these were followed by specific guidelines for how to apply the 10 Commandments. When Israel agreed to obey God and keep his covenants, God promised that they would be his special nation, a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. To help them achieve this lofty goal, the Lord designed a tabernacle and appointed priests to serve there. God himself would dwell among them. And when the sanctuary was completed, the glory of the Lord filled the tabernacle. Under Moses' supervision, the tabernacle was constructed, and Moses' brother Aaron became the high priest. As beautiful as it was simple, the tabernacle enabled the Israelites to worship God and to keep him at the center of their lives. While Moses was on Mount Sinai receiving the 10 Commandments and the design for the tabernacle, the rest of the nation was at the foot of the mountain getting involved in the worship of a golden calf. Yikes. Aaron lost control of the people and allowed them to talk him into fashioning an idol for them. This was a flagrant violation of the second commandment, and Moses sharply condemned Aaron for his action. Aaron was supposed to make atonement for the people rather than lead them into sin. How could the nation fall into apostasy so soon after agreeing to the terms of the covenant in chapter 24? In light of Israel's refusal to be a holy nation, the Lord vowed to destroy them and start all over again with Moses, making him into a great nation. But Moses pled with God on the basis of his promises to Abraham and the patriarchs, and total judgment was averted. Moses broke the 2 tablets containing the 10 Commandments as a sign that the people had broken the covenant, but the Lord gave him 2 new tablets when he climbed Mount Sinai again. In spite of the judgment that befell part of the nation, God used this occasion to reveal to Moses his goodness, compassion, and mercy.